see if he can carry the main squad here on the international stage. For now, though, Thresh banned away, Aatrox banned as well, Akali getting taken off the board. They saw some counter picks in the previous game, still not going to give Triple the opportunity. Bans remain pretty standard outside of the Thresh.
Yeah, and that surprises me because Arce has not played a lot of that at all during his regular season. And so this to me implies that there is a pick that the Direwolves do have in mind. They played a lot of Rakan during their regular season. Perhaps they want to get themselves something like the Tahm Kench early, get Cupcake on something that he is pretty comfortable with, or maybe they want to go for the Braum, but a Thresh ban is very surprising, and to me it kind of implies that they have a certain support pick in mind.
What's it going to be?
Alistar. It's actually just a generic Alistar. So clearly something that Arce has been practicing with the recent buffs to the pick, and we have been seeing it throughout the play-ins rise in terms of popularity.
Has been the case. Now do Infinity want to respond with an aggressive bot lane? Kaisa, the premier scaling option. They lost to it. They're going to give it the run back here as they bring it out themselves on the side of Infinity. Do they just grab a support of their own? That's kind of my question.
I think they could get themselves a jungler right now if they wanted to. In the last game, they early prioritized the Camille. And while SolidSnake wasn't able to have much success with it, it is still one of his big comfort picks. But instead, they will just lock themselves in a solid bot lane. It was the bot lane that they did end up losing to. And hopefully they can use it to empower them moving forward.
Have to see two scaling options. If the Tristana does get locked in, so both teams playing for a little bit later in the game. And a tank on the top side for BioPanther as expected. This is where you like to see this guy. Sometimes you want to see, you know,
Ornn
carry
and
top
Mundo.
laner.
Those are his
Ornn,
things.
Mundo, get a Cho'Gath in there. That's what I want in the hands of BioPanther.
So,
be an engaged threat.
Direwolves have engaged right now. They've got the Alistar and they've got the Ornn. They also have scaling on their side with the Tristana. All they want now is perhaps a little bit more early game skirmish damage unless they're committing to the late game. Infinity now going to lock in their mid laner, and of course, this was banned in the game against EDG, but this is a big comfort pick for Cotopaco.
And they're immediately banning out the counter picks. The Casio not going to see the light of day, and I love this. Cotopaco, brilliant with his use of the Realm Warp, shutting off paths, ensuring that the team can collapse on specific targets. I want to see if he can bust out the same performances we saw from him in the finals up here today against the Direwolves. And Tanks now going to be the option for the ban out against Direwolves, wanting to give BioPanther a favorable matchup on the top side.
I feel like Relic and BioPanther, though, have very similar champion pools, so even though they can look to ban out some of the obnoxious tanks, I think it's going to be difficult. I think the bigger thing here is trying to take away some of the engage tools that often come out from the top side of the map. And with Sion being one of the big ones, they may look to ban away the Maokai right now if they really want to limit the number of options for Infinity to start fights.
Olaf the takeaway here. So I guess Ryze, Olaf, you don't want all those champions able to collapse on you. The Predator, of course, a nice bit of movement speed. And the Braum,
That should...
No, there's
wait,
hold on,
yeah,
we forgot.
I was
Sorry.
like, wait, why didn't they ban Braum? I was like, oh yeah, because Tahm Kench has already been locked
There
in.
you go.
We got baited by the hover there.
Skarner locked in for SolidSnake, and this was a champion that he did put up some good results on in the final. I would love to see a similar performance again where he's shutting down key carries with that Skarner ultimate. King, though, of course, an incredible talent, may not succumb to that, may get a QSS under his belt.
And Triple, he often plays a lot of control mages. He was well known at MSI for things like his Azir, his Vladimir, his Talia. And right now he's kind of been flicking through a lot of these comfort picks. And there it is, Azir. Was talking to Spawn yesterday on the car ride home, and he was like, yep, the one big pick that Triple is known for is this Azir. So he's sticking to comfort on his first day in the plains.
Last pick going to go into the hands of the jungler of the Direwolves. What does UDYSOF bring to the table?
Is he going to go aggressive? Yes, he is.
Giving him an aggressive early pick, his first, I guess you want him to be comfortable. You say, you know what? Let's solo queue it. You get aggressive. You get in people's faces.
It's Azir Tristana.
Yeah, I do see
like,
that. I do see that both of the champions he needs to support are scaling, yes.
So I feel like he doesn't have that many lanes to play around on the Xin Zhao, and when you get to a point in the game when Azir and Tristana are irrelevant, Xin Zhao isn't. So I feel like something like a Gragas might have been better, but...
He's passing the baton, Vedius. He'll get them through the early game.
All right.
They carry it through in the late game.
We shall see. I much prefer Infinity's composition. I like the round out of the Poppy, I think their engage is a little bit limited, but they do have a pretty solid 1-3-1 composition, and that's really solid against heavy teamfight comps, like what the Direwolf have drafted, assuming you can get a lead in the early game. You can force the opposition to be separated, and they can't take advantage of their 5v5 strength, but then it's going to be reliant on SolidSnake to find you those early game leads, and I feel like he's capable of doing it. He couldn't do it against EDG because, well, his lane has died, but this time around, you don't expect that kind of pressure to come out from the Direwolf squad, especially when they're running Azir Tristana.
In the lanes, but in the jungle, UDYSOF, first game on internet from Challenger to Worlds. Oof. And now it's going to be rough. Absolutely, SolidSnake is a veteran of this game. But the Xin Zhao we know can be so strong in the early game. Maybe he gets a chance. Maybe he snowballs these lanes that we'd otherwise just expect to scale into the late game. But we're going to have to find out. No doubt that it is all eyes on the junglers in this matchup. SolidSnake, can he make an impact in the early game? UDYSOF, can he keep those carries safe till they come online later on?
That's a great question. We're going to find out. Because I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns in this game. We have little to gather from what we've seen from Infinity. We kind of didn't really see anything. So they can now have a clean reset. They can come into this game fresh and hopefully ready. And meanwhile, for the Direwolves, this will be their first game of the day without their star jungler in Schönfire. So how will their playstyle differ? Will we see action in the early game? Will we see them get to the late game and their scaling aspect? We will find out. Because Drakos, we're on Summer's right?
Absolutely are. Infinity, a rough start. Can they turn this one? Question on everyone's mind. Will Oceania get to raise their koalas today in support of the Direwolves? And UDYSOF is a guy that we normally, I think, always have to talk about, but it's important to remember who he's replacing when he comes into this lineup, because Schönfire was such a key for this team's success. It's difficult right now, and this is why a lot of people are skeptical about how much the Direwolves can do, because of how high impact Schönfire was for this team.
I completely agree with you. The thing about Schönfire is, you look at his stats across the board for the OPL in the Split 2, and you can just see that in terms of his KDA, it is pretty high. His kill participation is exceptionally high, and his K plus A at 15 is first within the league. And it just goes to show that how involved he is with a lot of the early game leads that his team builds up. He is the reason why the Direwolves are able to find their early game advantages. So with him now gone, does UDYSOF try to fulfill that same role? Does he try to be the heavy ganking style, the player that gets his leads in the early game, or does he play his own?
And that's the question. But Triple, I think, is the guy then that you have your eyes on to step up. King and Triple have been excellent carry threats, but with Triple on this scaling threat and his, pretty successful performance the last time we saw him on the MSI stage, I think we want to see more from him this time around. Of course, the stats, not the greatest, but when you think about how far down Direwolves were in the standings overall, it's pretty impressive that he was able to put up these numbers.
But I also think it's important to remember that this is the MSI, all of MSI mid laner ranking. So if you consider the big six that were in the MSI group stages, he's not far outside of them in terms of damage output and contribution.
This is Zhao in this lane. I feel like he had an opportunity just a second ago to go for a play, but good. I'm not sure if he was spotted on the ward going into the river. Well played in the end by Infinity. I thought it was the spider sense. I thought they had some next level intuition there on the bottom side, but they will back away from UDYSOF. UDYSOF will continue his jungle clear, and SolidSnake content, at least for the first few levels, to just trade back and forth on camps.
We'll go for the invade. Does have the smite. Could look for a steal, but he's got to be careful of the Tahm Kench, who is missing. And he's like, aha, yes. I don't have the numbers advantage, so I'm just going to walk away from this one. But I have vision on where the enemy jungler is. This will give BioPanther the option to be a little bit more aggressive, should he so choose to be. Yeah, we'll see how things go. Triple is definitely a player I have my eyes on so far, just sitting in the farm lane against Ryze. And it's interesting, because depending on which pro you speak to, we'll have very different opinions on Azir.
Oh, this is an old matchup. Azir Ryze was like one of the classics for a long time.
It used to be, and often what you have is Azir gets early push, Ryze is stronger mid-game, and
damage.
Right now they're losing this early skirmish, because Azir doesn't have that much damage at level 3. Long cooldowns on his Q mean that as long as you just move away from his soldiers, he then loses all of his DPS. So he needs the items to be completed before he can really look for those trades. And now we see SolidSnake up in the top lane.
BioPanther are going to need to try to find a way out of this one. The stun does not work. Poppy denying any escape. SolidSnake just going to try to walk him down. The red buff is there. He's running now for his life. He has the flash, but I don't even think it's worth burning it. First blood dropping for SolidSnake in the early game. And after a rough game one, this is the kind of start you want if you're Infinity.
Definitely, and we talked about it. SolidSnake He needs to get these laners ahead. You don't really expect him to gank the Poppy lane, but BioPanther was in a situation that he was a little overextending the lane. You know, he's just pushing it up. He thinks he's safe. He doesn't respect the fact that Skarner was just in the river fighting a 2 versus 2 against the Direwolves mid-jungle, and he ends up getting punished for it. Relic played this really well, knocking him back further in the lane, using the shieldy thing. I always forget the name of it. to block. I know what it does. I just forget the name.
Not even a shield though. It's just like an AoE knockup.
Yeah, but
denial.
it's like an AoE shieldy thing.
All right.
You get my point.
Yeah, sure. The
It
AoE
interrupts
shield
dashes, which is why it was used effectively against BioPanther.
The steadfast
Man, I'm just a color.
presence.
It's QWE to me.
You didn't even say that though. You said the shieldy.
Yes,
thing. Now the
double
engage
shield.
on bottom side. We'll let it go, Vedius. We'll let it go. And I love too that he stayed back on that play and didn't risk dying. He just let the Skarner finish the kill off. But King and Cupcake, you know, both of these options kind of scaling threats, but Tristana using the range advantage quite well. Now UDYSOF wants to make a play, but does get spotted
Snake
a little
is
bit.
there.
And I feel like Cotopaco is now baiting. He now knows, but UDYSOF does
we
not
go.
know. Here comes SolidSnake. Walking forward, the root is there, Predator comes out, UDYSOF looks like he's just gonna be food for SolidSnake and Cotopaco. Another kill drops, Triple running for his life, the heal already burned. And Vedius.
SolidSnake, he's having a really good game this time around. He's definitely out of the box. He's ready to play. He's counter-ganking every time UDYSOF tries to make a play. And we talked about it in draft, right? A lot of scaling on the side of Direwolves, but UDYSOF, he got spotted much earlier out thanks to this control ward, and so it was very easy for SolidSnake.
He gets spotted again here, by the way. I think just the edge.
Yeah. So they know he's there.
And this is just the inexperience of UDYSOF showing through, right? A more veteran player might know exactly where to stand, but UDYSOF makes the mistake, and well, not much else to say.
And you're not going to win this 2v2. Azir doesn't have the strength this early on into the game. Ryze, Skarner, definitely the much stronger in the duo. And so Infinity now, with a pretty healthy gold lead. Nice bounce back from their earlier performance against EDG, showcasing that EDG are just a really strong team, and Direwolves currently struggling with the loss of Showfire.
Have to see how that changes. Maybe UDYSOF gets a little bit more confident as we move further into the game. As his carries scale up, we'll see what value he can contribute. The level 6s are coming in swiftly. SolidSnake with a significant EXP lead means that Skarner is going to be a threat much faster than Direwolves were ready for it to be. So have to give a lot of respect over Infinity, especially as they just start to win out in a lot of these individual lanes.
Triple even getting zoned away because they don't have vision in their bot side jungle. He's paranoid of the dive. He goes for the trade rather than the farm. But he's still doing all right in terms of farm. Triple, remember that they do have the scaling aspect. Interestingly, he's gone for the electrocute over the more conventional, say, Airy or Comet. Wants to have a little bit more burst, but here's SolidSnake. TP comes in from behind.
Oh, Realm Orb comes out. Cupcake immediately forced to flash. Once again, just one of the things you gotta love about Cotopaco. So active in using the Realm Orb, something we do not always see from Ryze players, but every time it's off cooldown, he is trying to force a play.
Yeah, Infinity feels so much more comfortable this time around. SolidSnake on the Skarner, something he can have impacted in the early game. Cotopaco on his most played mid lane champion in Ryze, showcasing his capability and strength on the champion. Arce getting another comfort pick in the Tahm Kench as well. I like the use of the teleport there to flank in.
And you gotta wonder if that Thresh ban could have just been a Ryze ban, but that's something for Direwolves to, you know, review later.
Yeah, reevaluate. Remember, they will have another opportunity to rematch. They will get to play EDG later in the day.
We'll see what they can do.
You will see.
It's a difficult task, I think we can all agree. Me, you, everyone who watched that first game could definitely agree that it would be hard. Now the Skarner level 6 comes in. UDYSOF still behind. Very difficult spot to be in. They make the individual 1v1 nigh impossible to win, but UDYSOF still willing and able to make some of these plays. I feel like
he's got his eyes set. No pings have come out, so I don't know if he's been spotted just yet, but
he doesn't have a camp to go to. I feel like you just gotta try. Not confident though on the side of Direwolves. Don't want to risk anything there in that play. No TP for King means if that does go south, they're not going to be able to get quickly back to the lane. And Triple doing what he can to clear out a bit of vision. Vedius, this is a guy we've had our eyes on to carry the game, and sadly for him, he's going to be scaling for a little while before he becomes that mega threat.
You know, and thinking about it, right? Picking Tristana into the Kaisa too. Typically, you can have push into the Kaisa, but the problem here is the support matchup. The Tahm Kench, the Alistar. It's really difficult for Alistar to really gain any leeway in the lane when you're going up against the Tahm Kench, which means that this Tristana, who arguably does get outscaled by the Kaisa, or at least many pros would consider Kaisa to be the the best late game AD carry in the game right now, you can't really afford to be losing lane this hard, because you kind of look at this direwolves composition and you say, well, they still have the late game. Yeah. But like if your Kai'Sa's gonna hit 2 items first, you know, Storm Razors plus the Blade of the Ruin, Storm Razors plus Rage Blades, and then your Ryze is 2 items as well, and Vinny can just start forcing fights in the mid game, and they can feel pretty confident about winning them out.
And there's a brief window of opportunity, Vedius, where Tristana hits 3 items, where she can match the Kaisa and get ahead, but once Kaisa hits that 4th item, well, then she's winning again. And maybe if they can protect the AD carry, they have an option, but the Tahm Kench is on the opposite side. And we've seen this from Infinity. They love to have these map mobility. Once again, the Kaisa, Tahm Kench, Ryze as a trio is just truly terrifying to play up against, because you can really never feel safe under your towers when you don't have vision of the enemy.
So, things right now for the draft for direwolves, they don't look optimistic on paper, but often we've seen teams able to make things work, and if direwolves are able to find that successful gank with the Xin Zhao, maybe they can pull out a slight lead and get those item spikes sooner to be able to better force fights. But unfortunately, UDYSOF yet to hit level 6. 20 CS behind his jungle counterpart. Level 7 sitting for SolidSnake. And it definitely has been a rough game for him. Burning his flash early on, trying to make a gank happen mid, and then ending up losing his life in the 2v2. But the game has definitely slowed down, which is a much better situation for the direwolves to be in.
And you have to remember not to be too upset at UDYSOF. He wasn't really supposed to be in this position.
It's fair,
if you are an OPL fan, Shurnfire, this is not a 6-man roster, you know? This is not the sub-jungler they planned to use. It was supposed to be Shurnfire. It was supposed to be the 5-man strong lineup in every single game. And it's these emergency situations where the OPL team suddenly find themselves a man short, and not only a man, but an MVP, really, of this team.
Yep, certainly the case. Now Infinity looking to make a play down the bot side of the map. Use the pressure advantage that they do have. They will zone them away from all this farm, and the Realm Warp was even ready to rotate down. But Triple has come all the way here. I don't know how much he's going to be able to get off the back of this.
Cupcake's Alistar, something you always have to watch as well. The engage potential there, definitely something to consider. UDYSOF finally level 6. No boots still. Warrior going to be crucial. Massive spike. You go from 25 AD on the Caulfields to 60 on the enchantment. But still may not be enough here in a lot of these exchanges. And Vedius, Vinny playing this one really slow. Once again, their first game, we didn't learn anything about this team.
Yep.
But now that they're playing up against an opponent that they're matching a little bit more even with, or in this case, with a pretty good advantage so far, we're seeing them play that slow style we know them for.
Yes. And it was something we talked about a little bit. You will see ganks from SolidSnake, and he will be active, but this isn't a team that I feel has ever snowballed through their early game. Like, they're able to find those leads, but then they use them to transition more into like the 1v1 style, or a bit more of a mid-game spike. Very similar to how Supermassive like to play in terms of overall style.
Here's
but now,
a window. Oh, the TP immediately burned. They're not going to risk anything. UDYSOF walks in. He doesn't even know what he's walking into because they didn't spot it, but
Smite gets used.
Cotopaco using that. Careful here. Cupcake's here as well. They're just not even going to risk it. Tahm Kench ulti coming in as well.
And
Infinity
all right.
doing everything to contest that. The second they see anyone coming near that Rift Herald, they burn a ton of resources just to ensure that it goes down in their favor, to stop the fight before it even starts.
Yeah, I like the swap a lot from Infinity. The Drake had already been secured, and they're winning the 2 versus 2, so now just bringing it up towards the top side of the map, help you secure the Rift Herald as well. All the early game objectives going in favor of Infinity. The gold leads continues to just build ever so slowly. And direwolves, while they did read the play and they tried to match, unfortunately they were just a little slower than that of Infinity. So now 2,000 gold leads sitting in Infinity's pocket.
Another game where we're seeing a very slow, controlled style from the winning team thus far. But direwolves, we've seen what they can do if it comes to late game. While UDYSOF may struggle, we know the 4 other members of the team should still have the same team fight coordination. And if they can execute here with that Azir and Tristana backline, they will be absolutely lethal. But we're 12 minutes into the game. We're talking 25-30 if they want to hit those nice item power spikes. For now, though, BioPanther at least is winning his individual matchup in some of these trades. Still, though, losing in the push as Poppy just does not care.
It's also important to remember that the LAN and LAS are combining. And this, it becomes a lot harder to represent your region now for teams like Infinity and KOG, and you want to have a good showing, because this was the team that knocked out Rainbow 7.
This is the team that beat the team that knocked out Rainbow 7.
Yes, right? And so you think back to many playing stages, international wildcard events, and it was often Rainbow 7 or Lion Gaming that...
I mean, it was always Rainbow 7 and Lion Gaming.
Yeah, but my point is, what I mean is, they were all often the team that you would consider to be strongest in their group, or heavy favorites to make it out. And then they very rarely did it. Like, even though they were considered very strong, like with players like White Lotus and Seiya, they weren't able to do it. And now this team, Infinity, finally able to knock them out. They want to show that on an international stage, they can do more. They're capable of achieving what Rainbow Seven couldn't do, and making a name for Latin American North before the regions combine.
Absolutely, and you look at the members looking to make that name. The Arce in the bottom lane, former Lion Gaming support, now training up the next White Lotus, the guy second only to White Lotus. We're going to hold that thought is in the mid lane. We see the play coming out. Cotopaco now potentially in trouble, running for his life, and this could be a kill back for the Direwolves. Ryze is going to get taken down. A nice start, but here comes the Tahm Kench. Triple throwing down a bit of damage. UDYSOF knocking him back immediately, just denying the play. Direwolves finally finding an opening.
Gets the exhaust out from Arce as well, but good stuff there from the Direwolves. Cupcake utilizing the mobility boots to roam down to mid and work with Triple to find a kill onto Cotopaco. Getting a bit of gold down onto Triple is going to be important. We talked about it at the beginning of the game. If anyone from the Direwolves needs to step up, it will be this mid laner who had a very solid performance at MSI. Now we can see here, he's just hanging off in the distance. No vision spotted. UDYSOF does make his presence known, but then Cotopaco thinks, okay, the gank has been warded off, and then he goes in, gets the Shurima shuffle. There was Cupcake in the follow-up, and then Cotopaco uses his flash pretty early, which means that the chase can come through for that of the Direwolves.
And relieves a lot of pressure there in the mid lane, as now Triple finally has a CS advantage, can get a little bit of pressure. See if he can sustain this 1v1 as he gets closer and closer to finishing that first item. Does get the Nashor's Tooth now, so will be put up in a decent spot, especially because Archangels, before it turns into Seraph's Embrace, not the biggest source of AP, only the 1% mana to AP conversion. Really want to get that upgraded as quickly as possible so you can dish out much more damage.
Looking at some of the items that have been picked up as well. Fairly even across the board. If Direwolves can't secure this tower, then the gold gap itself will still be relatively close. But Rift Tower being spawned, I don't think they'll be able to get much off the back of this, because Triple does have the push in mid.
This is a very lackluster use of the Rift Herald. We have to assume that it was about to despawn. They did get it almost 4 minutes ago, and now Triple's not even going to let it hit the tower. No one is really playing around this pressure point right now, so this is just going to get used. Rift Herald. Realm warped in, but now they're just going to start the fight. The Rift Herald's not there. Triple getting this one kicked off, but he may just go down immediately. The heal now comes out. Beautiful team fight for the Direwolves thus far. Poppy doing what she can to deny. Now the Tahm Kench is here. UDYSOF going to back the rest of the team up. They're trying to pick up Cotopaco, but they're not going to get it. Beautiful denial from Arce. Pulling through in the end, and only SolidSnake is going to drop.
So I love the use of the Realm Warp from Cotopaco to get the Rift Herald behind enemy lines, but it just gave the Direwolves an opportunity to force a fight, and they were the ones that come out on top. They find themselves another kill, equalizing the kill score, closing the gold gap, and Direwolves saying, listen, we had a bit of a rough early game, but we're still in this game.
And it's a good look overall from the team. Triple playing the team fight beautifully. In our Acer replay, you can see how this man is setting the team up for success.
So you can see everyone starting to rotate round. The Tahm Kench ulti is going to come through as well. And the Realm Warp, yes, he takes him from behind, but then Triple goes in onto SolidSnake. He just gets blown up in an instant. Relic isn't there fast enough. The Tahm Kench isn't there fast enough either. And then BioPanther comes in with the ulti, but they can't quite get the follow-up because the rest of Direwolves are focusing on the Ryze. It means that no additional kills go down, and Direwolves are able to keep their mid tower alive, but it is very low and just prime for the taking.
And you got to give a little bit of credit to Relic on the side of Infinity. A very clean Poppy ult, denying both the Xin and the Tristana from leaping into his backline. That could have been a disaster for the Infinity lineup. They stopped the bleeding immediately in that fight, only losing a single member. And now they've got their sights set on their second dragon of the game. Mountain and an Ocean to back them up as they push forward. Will help if they want to go for the split push style at this stage of the game. Still, though, giving up a lot in that exchange. And Kaisa, interestingly enough, going for... or a little bit behind now on the Rage Blade, as the second item is going to be coming in a little bit faster for King after that play.
Game is now very close between the two teams. Interesting way in which it's developed, because Infinity, they utilize the early pressure pretty well, but then a couple of good plays coming out from Direwolves have kind of brought them back. Cupcake making his roam towards mid, the punish on the Rift Herald as well. And just goes to show that Direwolves still willing to force fights, even though they don't have the same kind of early game leads that they often get with Schönfire. They still have that playmaking potential, and Triple still looking really good on his big comfort pick.
I mean, 100% kill participation. He's been a part of it all, but King now.
So there's that Kaisa we were talking about.
That's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
King maybe not feeling quite as comfortable to go for the one-for-one trades. And of course, Cupcake not being there. That's bad news.
It's only going to get tougher for King as the fights progress. The advantage that Tristana does have over the Kaisa is the range difference between the two. And if Renyu can't really get onto the backline, then it becomes much harder to utilize the strength of the Kaisa in terms of her mobility and huge burst damage. So if it's just straight front to back, just because of the range advantage, it's that much easier for King to stay at a safe distance and hopefully melt through those tanks faster than Renyu can. But obviously, in terms of damage output, Renyu's going to have that advantage. So skirmish kicks off the mid.
Taking a lot of damage here, but SolidSnake is on the way, and UDYSOF is here as well, but that Zhao still quite far behind. Cupcake going to hold back in the duration of his ulti. Arce still might go down here. Azir wants it. Is he going to get it? One more auto means Triple takes down the support on the side of Infinity.
And fights just keep happening in the mid lane. Infinity, remember, their comp really excels at this point in the game when they're kind of splitting the map apart, and Direwolves have so many engage options. They have so much AoE. When they're grouped as a 5, that's when this composition thrives the most. And Infinity, 3 times in a row now, have given away advantages in this middle lane. They need to show more respect. They need to give that space over towards the Direwolves. Otherwise, they're going to keep looking for these fights and keep finding these small advantages.
The good news for Infinity is they do get a tower back, which puts the gold slightly in their favor. Vedius alongside the 2 Drakes they have earlier. But once again, a lot of expectation on Triple's shoulders. And I think we have to continue to praise him because he has not hesitated to really make these plays happen. Of course, Cupcake as well alongside King. Really the 3 core members stepping up as BioPanther kind of remains on an island.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I just noticed the Phantom Dancer being picked up for King. Perhaps he wants a little bit more survivability against Renyu. Not conventional. Usually we see things like the Rapid Fire Cannon or in some cases the Static Shiv.
And the Rapid Fire Cannon, you know, a pretty terrifying item generally.
Yeah.
Because on 3 items you get an 800 damage crit on a mage and they just don't really get to play the game.
And there's that range advantage we were talking about, right? Like, it can be difficult for Renyu to close the gap.
But I think that's what we like, right? In the sense that Renyu can outduel if he gets in range, and now it's that much harder for him to get in range because the Phantom Dancer gives that extra movement speed, gives that damage reduction. And
I
so
guess.
It's not a rapid fire auto, which is very strong, but it does mean the King is a little bit more comfortable in a lot of these duels. Especially,
I will say, like, I can somewhat understand.
It's odd. I agree. I'm not convinced either.
Build.
I'm just trying to find an argument as to why he would build it.
I agree. And I think it is just that extra bit of survivability and maybe a bit more dueling power. But right now, he does have priority in mid. Want to quickly look at the vision across the map as the game's a little slow. You can see that Direwolves do have control over the river, and Infinity are forced to kind of have more of a defensive vision line just around the Baron area. And this largely comes off the back of Direwolves' control in the middle lane, and having control around the Baron is really important for their comp, because remember, they want to 5v5. One of the easiest ways to force that is start the Baron, and you get the enemy team to group out, TP in, and then you can look to force your fight.
But for now, King is focused on sieging. The Azir Tristana siege duo is incredibly oppressive. Hex Flash, is it going to go in? Cupcake not going to commit. When they see the Predator used, they're happy to just take the cooldown alongside the TP. But another wave, they might just be able to siege it. They have a significant range advantage. Relic, however, says, all right, we'll take the 1-for-1 trade. We'll push in on the bottom side of the map. And now if Direwolves don't get this tower, they're going to feel pretty stupid.
This is the difference in the comps, though, right? Infinity want to try and play on a side lane. Right now, they're just trying to wave pivot. Here's the engagement Direwolves.
The flash out from Cotopaco. They're just going to give up the tower immediately. Azir sets up one of his own, just stopping any counterplay here from the side of Infinity. But it's a 1-for-1 trade in terms of towers in the end, and still Infinity with a gold lead.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, Direwolves lose so much farm in the bot lane. You're going to lose like 2, maybe even 3 waves to the tower. Excuse me, and as a result, it just means that even though the tower gold goes down in favor of Direwolves, Infinity also secured their second tower of the game, and they got all those extra resources into Relic. So he's going to have an experience advantage over BioPanther, he's going to have a gold advantage. You can see he's already completed his second item as well. So debatable if that trade is worth it, seeing as they're going to lose a third tower off the back of it as well.
Direwolves outclassing in a lot of these exchanges and fights, but when it comes to map play, Infinity are reigning supreme here. Splitting up the map and finding these opportunities. The earlier Rift Herald charge may have cost Infinity a kill. It may eventually cost the mid lane tower, but they do get one back, as the Herald did reduce that tower.
Oh. No!
Guys, don't say anything, okay? He didn't take. He wasn't even trying to take it. He was trying to life steal off of.
It was inefficient to grab it early because he needs to base. That's it.
He wanted to give it to UDYSOF. He's being a nice guy.
Please don't give it to UDYSOF.
I don't. You know what?
He's a nice guy, but look, I want it on my Tristana.
You gotta respect UDYSOF because he comes in, you know, in change of the MVP. Say it again. He picks Xin Zhao.
Yes.
Hugely aggressive solo Q pick. And even when he's behind, he goes, guys, give me the Trinity Force. I will
no
kill
Sterex
someone.
Gauge. Ooh, flash from BioPanther.
Realm Warp use once again. Well played to get the flash out of BioPanther.
All right, what can Direwolves force here? They have priority around the Drake. They're actually going to start this one off, and BioPanther will come in from behind, so he has the ulti primed and ready. But can Direwolves capitalize on the fight? Or
Cupcake's waiting on the side. Cupcake's waiting on the side. He's looking for that engage opportunity. SolidSnake, though, moving up. If they can kill the Skarner before he gets a chance to ult, flashing back into the middle of the team. Now the Ornn ulti coming through is going to hit 2 members, but Cotopaco's untouched on the side. Renyu's alive as well, but Triple's not going to give him easy access. 2 members taken out immediately by the Direwolves. A beautifully played fight, and now they're just going to have to back off. Too many threats on the side of Direwolves to fight any longer, and Drake will fall on their feet.
And once again, the Direwolves come out with a successful 5v5 fight. These are the kind of situations that they want to be in. The 2 items have been completed, and they're making a beeline straight towards the Baron Drakos. SolidSnake is dead. Relic is dead. Infinity may have lost more than they bargained for.
The Ryze and the Kaisa, the 2 carries. Are they going to be enough to stop this one? The Tahm Kench coming in as well. I don't think they can do it. 6K, it's going to take a miracle for them to steal this one. They have no access to the smite. Arce went with the barrier instead. It is just going to get taken down by the Direwolves, and Direwolves now with a significant advantage.
And Infinity, after having such a great early start, shutting down UDYSOF and just answering everything we tried to do, keep getting bought into these team fights. And SolidSnake, he doesn't realize the Cupcake's just sitting there, and he gets chunked out right from the get-go. With one of the frontliners and engage tools gone, that means that the peel now has to get used on your front line. And while Relic, he's just now tanking 5 members. King just melts through him, and this is what we were talking about, the range difference between Renyu and King. If Renyu cannot get onto the back line and threaten alongside the Skarner and the Ryze, then the front to back is always going to go in favor of the Tristana and the Azir. So Direwolves now reaching a point where they will win out on these 5 versus 5.
And you look at King now, halfway to that 3rd item, also has the QSS, has paid the Skarner tax, so things only going to get easier in these fights for Direwolves. And, you know, Xin Zhao may not have really had an early game impact, but when Kaisa tries to leap in, she cannot target him. He uses the ultimate, and if she wants to get into melee range with the Xin Zhao, she's going to die to the Tristana and the Azir before she gets to push a single button.
Yep. So now they have their eyes set on the enemy jungle, getting a bit of deep vision, slowly pushing these waves, and they have a slow push up in the top lane as well. And it's really important that they rotate up towards the top side of the map as well to try and deny all that farm that can be picked up from Infinity. You can see the pings coming out.
They know, both teams recognize. Infinity recognizing they have to take that top wave, they have to stop that slow push, and Direwolves recognizing they need to group here in mid lane, they can force a play. They have the Azir, Tristana, Siege. Once again, 2.5 items on both of the carries. Along with the Baron buff means that there's not really a lot of tools on the side of Infinity to deny them of this push.
Yeah, the poke and the siege from the Direwolves is extremely strong. Remember, UDYSOF coming in as a sub for Shunpai, the star of their team, yet Direwolves have come out through superior team fighting, and now they're sieging onto the first inhibitor tower of the game. Infinity looking for a bit of poke, but they get forced back.
Vedius, there's just no recourse. The Azir tower behind Direwolves makes them near impossible to flank. Poppy throwing out the ult just to threaten them, just to tell them to back up. The Triple and King just move forward. They're just going to break through this inhibitor. 27 minutes in, the Baron's still ticking, and Direwolves 4K in the lead after a pretty grueling early game. They managed to bring this one back.
The scaling comp is finally paying off. Infinity slowed down. They allowed Direwolves to farm. They allowed them to reach those item spikes. And the Direwolves, they kept forcing plays. They utilized the Dragon well. They turned it into a Baron, and now 27 minutes into the game, a really healthy gold lead, and they can keep forcing these 5v5s so they know they're stronger.
Ornn ulti now coming out. Poppy going to try and find the disengage. 2 threats taken out. BioPanther needs to make his way out, but he's been suppressed and pulled back into the team. This is a pick back. Can they get the kill? Cupcake now in the middle of everybody. UDYSOF throwing out a bit of damage. King untouched on the backside. Is he going to go for any more aggressive plays? Just decides to back off. Low health bars across the board, but Direwolves will break the tower in the end, giving up only their top lane.
So it was a good knockback from Relic into a pick from SolidSnake. The setup looked promising for Infinity, but unfortunately, the moment Triple rejoined the fight, there was just way too much damage from the side of Direwolves, along with a big minion wave that was just beating onto that tower. It meant that Infinity get themselves a kill, they lose an objective, and they still end up in a deficit.
And Vedius, one of the weaknesses that you highlighted in draft of the Infinity composition is that they kind of lack these engage options. Skarner, obviously a great form of CC, but doesn't just get to leap into your face, and it's a similar story for Poppy most of the game. And now it's starting to count against them. Luckily for them, the Poppy ult does net them a single pick. But when Direwolves are sieging, they don't really have any way to get into that team if they don't find a flank.
And the only thing that the Direwolves have to be careful of is a flash Skarner ult, which you now can't do on the Tristana because of the QSS. And Triple, he's clearly not too afraid of it because he has his Azir ulti as well, along with the dash. So, yeah, I think, like, you could argue that Direwolves saw the limited engage available for Infinity and just said, you know what, we can go for scaling because we don't think they're going to be proactive enough. And so far it's paying off for the Direwolves. So Infinity, after what was a rough game against EDG where they got demolished, they turned it into a pretty good early advantage against the Direwolves, but they slowed down a little too much. It allowed the scaling comp to turn on. And now Direwolves, they have the mid inhibitor. They will likely just either look for picks or look for deep vision and wait for the next Baron, rather, because I don't think they need to force anything right now. The longer this game goes on, the stronger their comp is going to get. So the worst thing they can do is overcommit and give Infinity the opportunity to find some shutdown gold or find a sneaky team fight.
4 members, now 5 going to be on from Direwolves on the top side. They're allowing Ryze to split push, but his TP is now being used to come defend this top lane tier 2. Poppy ult comes out. This could be the key to get it started. The tank is gone. They're going to flash forward. They're going to bring the Zhao back at everybody. Cotopaco trying to stop any further engagement going on, but the Zhao ult denies the follow-up. Infinity find an engage, but not a kill. UDYSOF, the new young member of the team, will not be picked off in that exchange.
And Infinity tried the same engage once again, but the Zhao ulti coming in clutch knocks away the Infinity members, doesn't take any additional damage, and gets away with his life. And now SolidSnake doesn't even have its flash available. So Infinity doing what they can, but unfortunately not enough as Direwolves secure themselves another tower.
Poppy now chasing, maybe hoping to get the play here, but King available as well if they want to try to force it. And Vedius 5k gold lead, outer towers breaking left and right, and an inhibitor down in the mid lane means this next Baron is going to be nigh impossible for Infinity to contest, unless they can get some control right now. Now King, potentially caught out, will use the rocket jump. BioPanther's here as well, they're not going to be able to force this one, but Predator coming out. Desperation times for Infinity. Are just going to settle for Baron Vision instead.
That's all they're after. Oh, giving the blue buff over to King rather than the Azir, I guess, because he is on the bot side of the map. They could also try and steal the enemy blue, but you can see the difference in the gold graph. There was that early lead they were talking about for Infinity, and over time, with some small picks and plays, Direwolves have gradually worked their way back in. And I know many OPL fans are pretty happy right now, because
yeah, you thought that Surenfire being gone was a death sentence. Yes. I think we all did when we saw how much of this team's success was built on this guy's early game playmaking,
precisely,
his mid to late game shot calling. But now you see, if they can keep playing these scaling comps without getting punished in the early game, they look like a strong 5-man team.
They can't do this against EDG, but that is a battle for another day.
Hey, I said if, yeah. Okay, give them a chance.
But it's worked out great so far this game. You can't fault them for it. I was a little skeptical. Zhao with the comp. Definitely not one that I would say kind of synergizes well, but so far they're making it work. And right now the Baron has spawned. In order to set up for the Baron, textbook plays, you gain mid control. And that's why Infinity are the first ones there to try and get the early push so they can get the vision in the river and buy time for their inhibitor to respawn. But Direwolves being stronger force them out and will now reclaim vision control throughout the Baron.
We're just looking for that miracle engage. Maybe it's a flank from the Realm Warp on the Ryze. Maybe it's a beautiful ulti from the Poppy, but unless they find it, Infinity are not going to be able to find a fight. In a straight up 5v5, they simply get out-damaged and out-ranged.
Look at Triple as well. He was hanging off in the flank, level 17 now. 3 items done, and he will set up this tower. And this is a very easy way to get mid lane control.
Also have to remember, if you're Triple, heed Vedius' advice. Just play it slow, because we've seen many games back in Azir meta be decided by the Azir that's a little too eager to try and engage, that tries the sick Azir sec, the Shurima shuffle, and ends up dying as a major damage threat. Isn't going to happen this time.
Look at how quickly this dies now with Azir plus Tristana. Bot and top are pushing in favor of Direwolves. Now is around the time where they want to try and force this play.
Focusing on the mid lane, Renyu cannot get close to Tristana right now. 3.5 items alongside the QSS. Good spot to be. Renyu significantly behind in this matchup. And now they're just going to focus down the Baron. Triple and UDYSOF is going to go for the 2-man here. What's the opportunity here for SolidSnake? Can he find a way in? 5K dropping. Direwolves, are they going to risk the 50-50? SolidSnake's going in. Realm Warp is there. Alistar's going to try to force him back. The Skarner, can he make it into the pit? Relic in the middle of everybody. Renyu goes in. He takes down the jungler. The Baron does drop in his favor, though. Maybe Infinity can fight this back. They have the mana advantage, but they've lost the Baron. If they die here, the game will end in the favor of Direwolves. Relic doing what he can to save the day, but the 80 carry's already gone. Cotopaco versus the world as Direwolves just clean up this fight, take the Baron, and look to end all hope for this Infinity lineup.
Direwolves find a huge fight, and while it costs them their jungler, it could very well secure them the game as King jumps in again.
TPing again, flashing forward, the QSS kills him mid-air. No mercy for the Direwolves. They are unconcerned about jet lag. They are unconcerned about their sub-jungler. They are making it work here on the play-in stage, picking up their first win of the tournament, putting Infinity down to 0-2. If you are an OPL fan, this is exactly the game one you wanted to see because Direwolves are absolutely cleaning house.
Huge props to the sub-jungler, coming in as an emergency sub from Challenger to Worlds, and in his first game, he does find a win. Admittedly, it was Triple and Cupcake who were a large part of finding a lot of those mid-game fights and kind of setting up for allowing Direwolves to come back into the game. But you've got to imagine the pressure that was on that young man's shoulders, right? Like, Direwolves have been the representative internationally for the last 2 years for the OPL, and they thought that with this group, there's a good chance of them finishing second. They would avoid EDG in the playoffs. And things were looking optimistic for them. So props to Triple, props to Cupcake. I think they played extremely well.
And a rough first day for Infinity. You can see forlorn faces on the opposite side. I mean, visa issues are tough, man. You come in late, you don't get the practice you want to get, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you can't count it against them. We just have to hope that in the day that they're not playing tomorrow, they can rally, they can come back stronger, get themselves a 2-2 record, somehow beat EDG, which is a tall task.
Now they're kind of EDG fans because they want them to beat Direwolves, and then if Infinity could just beat the Direwolves themselves, they can maybe force a tiebreaker and have the opportunity to get into that top 2 spot.
We're going to have to see if they can do that. We're going to have to see what the rest of the teams can do as we move further into the day. But to get a breakdown on that victory for the OPL, let's hear from the State Farm analyst desk.
Well then, the Direwolves have arrived at Worlds with a phenomenal victory over Infinity. I do also want to welcome a phenomenal victory for the analyst desk. Mark Z is back.
Yeah, Spawn was going to be way too hype with OPL winning, so they had to bring me in to not get too crazy.
Yeah, we had to drag him out, honestly. It was getting a little bit too active.
Trying to fight people.
Threw in a few punches.
Yeah.
He is going to cast, but we did actually have to drag him. He was like, I want to talk about the Direwolves. Well, I'll do it for him. A phenomenal game out of the Direwolves. And I just want to state, and I don't think I can overstate it enough, the expectations were low for this team, especially since the news that Surenfire would be out, UDYSOF, the complete rookie, would be in, and they have defied all those expectations so far. So what plan did they do it with? Because it doesn't look like a very normal or a comp that we had expected.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to scaling for me, where the Azir and Tristana would be paying off. There was some gank potential with the Azir, and I think that the onus was going to be on Triple. Remember, a lot of focus was going to be on how well he played last international event. So now bringing it over here, I thought that it gave a lot of focus for his team to just play off of the gank potential onto Cotopaco mid.
Setting him up.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of just comfort across the board. Tristana does show up in the meta, especially against Kaisa, but with the Alistar, you didn't see actually that many kill opportunities happening down the bot lane, but they still played it well throughout the mid and late game, showing it wasn't just a lane counter.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. We did see a horrible start from UDYSOF, but all credit to him. He kept a cool head.
Yeah, I mean, that was, there's a moment where I was like, he is making SolidSnake look good when SolidSnake got destroyed in the previous game. So, you know, I thought that was kind of the end of the world with some of those early ganks where he was showing on wards, showing on just minion waves and stuff and still going for gank opportunities. But then to have the mental resilience to not let that get to him and the entire team as well, probably helping support him, what was really impressive to see.
That's the thing. Remember, it was the same deal with BioPanther on the top side, getting ganked out there, so the jungle difference was definitely showing. But then it refocuses down mid and Dragon, and you can start to see these fights unfold, where I think that Direwolves had a great setup.
Yeah, exactly, and this is where our MasterCard player of the game, Triple, emerged. We always knew he was a good player. He had shown very good play at MSI as well, and it was a question if he'd be able to do it now that he had a new jungler in. The answer is a resounding yes.
Now, this this was a great setup to begin with. Remember, his Azir soldier was just about to die. It meets it, so Cotopaco walks in a little bit forward, gets caught out, and this was just a trend.
Yep, and this is kind of the catalyst for getting back in the game where these kinds of pickoffs, because they were down a fair amount of gold and you can't take even man fights, but then, you know, Infinity also continuing to fight these. You see the Tahm Kench coming in, you know, they didn't want to back down, and because they were trying to meet Direwolves playmaking, it was actually giving them more opportunities to keep finding kills.
After that, though, the Direwolves, when they had control, they knew they had the advantage at that point, and they kept going, which I think is often something that we don't see from teams in play in stages. When they get the advantage or they don't, they have a hard time playing it out. This was not the case. It got a bit dicey around Baron, but they
That's
worked
the thing.
it out.
I remember during MSI, they talked about how they have a pretty large staff to really hit them, and like a sports psychologist as well. They've been really hammering in. If you find yourself in a deficit, you can still come back. The team Direwolves in the past has actually been a team that if they find themselves in a deficit, they just lose out. Same with most OPL
So
squads.
is this where the question comes in? Was it a blessing in disguise that Schernfire is not on the team?
It's actually a good question because he has always been a very fiery player, which when you're on a winning team, that's great because he's giving you all this passion and stuff, but it's also the kind of thing where when that fire dies out because you're losing, like, he's not the kind of guy who's going to, like, I don't think, feign optimism in a game that's not going great. And so maybe it's the different personality type actually does help out.
I think that even one of the best things about the jungler there, Schernfire, is that he does actually have a fairly calm head when they're in a deficit, and he's a great communicator. So I just think that he is by far the better jungler in this situation. It's more telling that Infinity losing in this kind of fashion is a very dire strait for them going into the next day.
So you're turning it on Infinity's
Yeah,
head
I
as
definitely am.
dancing around the jungle
It ain't
item.
good, dog. It ain't good.
I see that from your experience, you did keep a cool head. We'll leave it in the middle, but I think maybe, as Mark said, it more comes down to a different type, not necessarily better or worse, a different way to play in these situations. The same with BioPanther as a rookie in the top lane as opposed to Chippies. It seems like the dynamic in Direwolves may have changed. Of course, one game sample, right? So let's track it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we said, UDYSOF did have some problems here. So when they go into their second game of the day, if he's able to have a better early game, I think that's maybe when the question starts arising because he definitely struggled in the early game compared to what we're used to seeing out of Schernfire.
And remember, here's a big point too. Even though I talked about the large support staff that they have, it's one person more because it's actually been Schernfire helping out UDYSOF, making him feel comfortable and watching some of the scrims as well. So I think they're, it looks like, in a very good position. We'll have to see how they fare versus ED.
Yeah, they've turned that deficit into maybe an advantage going forward. And then Infinity, as you said already, across the board, LATAM North, LATAM South, and also CB LoL, the teams from Latin America and South America have just not been too good. What can we break it down for Infinity? Of course, we talked about jet lag before. We talked about the fact that they had strong individual players, so they could make something happen. What do they have to look at?
My point is I think they try and make too much happen on the map. A lot of the times your composition is focused towards getting your bottom lane ahead, and a lot of these teams, I know that Fix and Slow for KLG, and in this case, you have your bottom lane, Renyu and Arce, play towards your bot side a little bit more frequently. Even if the top side is getting ahead, you can use your TP advantage to get something going. But far too often is Cotopaco making plays happen mid lane or trying to press too deeply, or Skarner trying to do the same thing. It just muddles everything up and it makes more mistakes happen.
Yeah, just the idea of like coordinated set plays versus reacting to a moment where you think you can take aggression. They haven't done like these 4-man dives, roaming the Ryze down and stuff like that very much. And that's what you want to see, not like just a random 2v2 in the mid lane.
Yeah. We'll see in 2 days when they come back to the stage, the day after tomorrow. Rather, let's also check in on our predictions. We had some monumental failures and then one gleaming correct supermassive prediction, which we have to give Raz credit for. So our next predictions are kind of boring, but I'm just going to follow Raz, whatever he predicts.
Well, what I really like about this is, like, no one's going to ever talk about the fact that I got G2 wrong because we're Shocks and Vedius and all these G2 homers who are upset that they lost and just quietly. I get to sneak under the radar that, like, on the, you know, the cooldown yesterday, I was blasting Raz for daring to predict supermassive.
Same. No, don't watch that
Don't check
VOD.
the tape.
Don't watch that VOD.
No.
Well, in any case, does anyone want to change their prediction of Direwolves over EVG?
No, that's not happening. If that happens so much, if that game happens, somehow UDYSOF takes down Clear Love, I'm just done. I'm gone. I'm literally just walking out of the building and taking my flight back to Shanghai.
All right, then. We will track that. We will see what happens. Also, remember, you guys, the Championship Kazakhs and all of the world's loot is also available now. To show your additional support, pick up your team-specific chroma, which can include a loading screen border, a special recall, and an emote that you can flash in-game when you're owning all those people. Now, in our next game, we've got Supermassive back on the stage as they challenge Thailand's Ascension Gaming. See you then.